For those of you who are new to my channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you'd like to. The last video that I had posted was the what's in my hospital bag and the baby's hospital bag. Like I said in that video, I might have a while without posting because I'm gonna be giving birth. So now I am 5 weeks postpartum. I'm gonna be talking about my experience in labor and delivery. So it all began on June 1st. And this day I had woke up normally. Mind you, my due date was May 29th. So I was already like 4 days overdue. So this day I woke up feeling regular, just tired, like you get when you're 9 months and on. Like that's when I started to get tired and like I was just over everything. I was going with my boyfriend's family to a graduation party that we were invited to. So I was like, wow, this is gonna be a great day. I'm gonna be partying, dancing with my little bump. We went to my boyfriend's house first. We stood there until the party had began, and then we drove there. So while I was at his house, I started to get these like small cramps at first, because I was already having Braxton Hicks like before. It wasn't that bad, but then that day it was just like I've never, like I felt like I had to poop, but then I didn't have to poop. So I was just like, what is going on? And then I like went to lay in bed and the pain was just getting stronger. So I was like, babe, I think I'm getting contractions. And then he's like, you're lying. I was like, no, I'm really, like, I really think I'm having contractions, but I'm not gonna go to the hospital yet, because the last thing I would want is to go to the hospital then get sent home. Like that's the worst I've heard. So I kept having contractions and the time for the party came. This was at about 12 in the afternoon, and by the time the party came it was already, I think we left at 5:30 around there, and that whole time I was having contractions and I was just trying to hold it. I had a timer on my phone and I would time it, and it was like every 3 to 2 minutes, 4 to 3 minutes, like not consistent. So I just kept it going and we got to the party. I ate, I was still having contractions. Every time I would feel it, like, and it was coming more frequently. So I would just put it on the timer and then I would put the time that it stops. And it would give me like a warning, like this is a sign that you're in active labor. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm in active labor right now and I'm not even anywhere near my house or the hospital. So we're at the party from like 5:30 to 9:30. And I'm still having contractions. So they played music at the party and they played the cha-cha slide. I was just dancing, trying to, you know, have a little bit of moves here and there to try to push the baby down. I was already having pressure, so I knew that the baby was moving down. But everyone is just like, yeah, the baby is coming today. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. So after the party, I had called labor and delivery, because they tell you like if you're having contractions or if you feel like something is a bit off, to call labor and delivery. So I called them right after the party when we got outside. They were like, how frequent are your contractions? I was like, I have a timer on my phone and it says it's every 2 to 1 minute. That's how it was at around that time. It was almost 10 o'clock. So they were like, okay, we're gonna check you in and we're gonna need you to come in. So I gave them my name and my information. I called my parents and I was like, I'm getting driven to the hospital because I've been having contractions, but I don't want you guys to come just yet. Like if I'm gonna be admitted, if I'm gonna have to stay there, then I'll tell you guys to come, but I don't know if I'm gonna be like staying in the hospital for sure. So my boyfriend and his family drove me to the hospital and they checked me in. And when they put these bands that measure baby's heartbeat and that your contractions are coming in, like how frequent they're coming, and the nurse, she came in, she had left and then she came back and she was like, we're gonna need you to stay because your contractions look like they're a bit frequent. And I was just like, oh my goodness, okay. So my boyfriend was just in there and he was just like, oh, like crying. We were both crying. I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe today is gonna be the day that we're gonna meet our little baby boy. So by this time, I think it was already 11 something, almost 12. So he called his parents, I called my parents. I was like, we're gonna be staying in the hospital, so bring my bags. This is when everything started. They had took me to the delivery room after they had me inside, like this regular small room, just taking the measurements and all that stuff of my stomach, checking the baby's heartbeat and everything. So they took me to the delivery room. When I saw the little bed that they put the baby in, I was just like, oh my god, like this is really happening right now. So then that's when like the nervousness started to kick in, because I'm only 19. I'm pushing a human out of me, and it's just like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. I don't know how I could do this. So when I got to the room, they had took my IV. They gave me an IV. Every time I go to the hospital and I'm getting an IV, there's always a problem with them finding my vein. Literally took the nurse like 10 minutes just to find a small vein to insert the IV to give me fluids, because they're always hiding. I was watching TV. I was getting contractions, but they weren't as strong. And they asked me if I wanted to take the epidural. I was not gonna take the epidural. Like, I was gonna try to go natural, but then when the hard contractions started to kick in, I was just like, oh my goodness, is this what contractions feel like? Give me that epidural. Okay, I'm gonna need the epidural right now. Mind you, I held my contractions from Saturday noon, probably 12. That's when it all started. Saturday at 12 all the way up until Saturday going into Sunday at midnight at 3 a.m. That's how long I held the contractions for, because they weren't strong. So when they began to get stronger, that's when they gave me the epidural. And my waters wasn't broken at this time when they gave me the epidural. So the nurse was just like, they would check inside, like to check how much I've dilated. And I was dilating pretty quick until I got to 6 centimeters. When I got to 6 centimeters, I was in 6 centimeters for about 3.5 hours. And they were like, we don't know what's going on. So when they looked in there, they saw that the baby's head was sunny side up. Like, the baby's neck was bent and his head was facing up when it's supposed to be straight. They would put my foot on top of like this, like, I don't know what it was. It was like a little stance where you put your foot on top. Like, they made me lay on my left side, my right side. Like, they kept making me switch to see if the baby's head would like turn. At this time, the nurse had came in and she was like, we're gonna break your water. Right after she like checked how much I was dilated, a few minutes after, I was on the epidural, so I really didn't like feel any pain at the time. I did feel like this like hot water running down my leg, like my thigh. And I told my boyfriend, I was like, babe, I think my water just broke. And my mom was in the room as well, so they went to get the nurse. She was like, yeah, it looks like your water broke. So they grabbed like this little stick, I think it was like, it looked like wood, and they like they popped it, and I just felt like water running. I was like, oh my goodness. So then after the water broke, everything started to move a little bit more smoothly. I was still at 6 centimeters for 3 hours, but then after that, the epidural medicine was starting to wear off. They're like, you're gonna need another dose of epidural like into your spine. So I was just like, please give it to me, because I'm like, I was in so much pain. I was like shaking. They had to put the mask on my face because I don't know if I was losing oxygen or the baby was losing oxygen. I'm pretty sure it was the baby. So they had to put the oxygen mask on my face and for like about an hour. So then at this time, it's already Sunday morning, and this was all at midnight. Like, I did not sleep not one bit. I was just watching TV. I was on my phone. I was just like, when is this baby gonna come out? Like, I'm getting so frustrated. So Sunday morning came. My father normally goes to church, but he didn't go to church this Sunday because I was at the hospital. My contractions began to get, like, this time they started to get really bad. Like, I was like on the bed, like, ugh, like it was so bad. And like the nurses, they would take forever to come, but they would take a while to come because I'm assuming there were other pregnant women there. So I was just drinking water. I had ginger ale. I had apple juice because you could only have liquids. So, and I was starving. Like, I was already thinking about what I was going to eat after this baby came out. The nurses were just coming to see how much I've dilated. Sunday morning, I was at 6 centimeters. Then throughout the day, I went to 8. And then by the time I was going to give birth, I was already 9 centimeters. I think it was about 6 something-ish, 7 something, when I had began to get, like, bad. Like, the epidural was not working. I would click it and nothing would work. Oh my goodness, I just skipped a whole step. Let's talk about the epidural going into your spine. So, when I was getting the epidural, I was nervous as heck. Like, I don't know why my body reacts this way, but when I know that I'm getting something inserted, like, with a needle, it begins to shake. Like, my whole body just begins to shake like crazy. And I'm like, doctor, like, is it okay for me to be shaking while you're doing this? And he's just like, just relax and it's okay, we'll work through it. So I'm just there shaking. The nurse is holding me because they're supposed to, like, to make sure that your back is in the correct shape for them to be able to insert the needle. They put this numbing medication in your back first, like, to make sure that your back is numb. And that felt like a little tingle. Like, it was just, ugh. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, if you're getting a flu shot and you just feel like a burn, like a little tingling burn, that's how it feels in the back. When they were putting the epidural, I guess, the tube that they put inside your spine, it was just like, you're not supposed to feel pain whatsoever. You're only supposed to feel pressure if you do feel anything. So I was feeling pain. And I was feeling it, like, on my left side of my thigh. And they're like, are you okay? I was like, I'm feeling pain. They're like, are you feeling pain or pressure? I was like, I'm feeling pain. So they had to give me more numbing medication. And then I was still feeling it. But I guess it was all mentally. So I was just trying to keep myself calm. And they were like, do you still feel it? It took me a while to answer because I was trying to make sure that it was pressure and not pain. And then at the time, it had turned into pressure and not pain. So I was like, no, it's fine. And I was so scared. Like, people talk about it being like this big. It did not feel that big. It was just a regular needle. They put a tube inside with it, like, from inside of the needle, I assume. And then they put the medicine inside the tube, which goes down to your spine. That numbs you from your waist and below. So it took a while for the medication to kick in. The epidural was not kicking. I was still able to wiggle my toes. Some people can't wiggle their toes. I would still feel my thighs. I just couldn't feel, like, the contractions. It just felt like pressure. And, like, when they would come to check how much I've dilated, I wouldn't feel that either, which is something that feels horrible. When they check you in, that's the worst pain ever. I was, like, in tears every time the nurse would check me. It was just so bad. So back to Sunday. I'm sorry, I'm, like, all over the place. On Sunday afternoon, that was when I was just over it. I was like, I need this baby out. Like, whatever you have. I did not want a C-section. That's one thing that I did not want. And the doctors were also trying to avoid. Normally, when the baby is born sunny side up, they recommend a C-section just to not risk the mother's life or the baby's life. Because, like I said, my baby was losing oxygen, so I needed the oxygen mask. Like, some babies can end up, God forbid, dying, like, from suffocation down there because of the pressure from the cervix. When it got almost to 8 o'clock, I began to push. I lasted about 45 minutes pushing. Before I began to push, those few minutes before, the pain was so intense. It felt like no medication was in my system. Probably scaring you guys, but I'm talking about my experience. Everyone's experience is completely different, but I'm talking about my experience, so do not be scared. The pain was so intense. I was just, like, curling up on the bed and I was just crying. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, and they kept coming in and out of the room. They had a table set up and everything with all of the equipment, like, in case if they had to cut you open down there, if you had any tears and they had to stitch it up. My mother-in-law and my mom had called the doctors in, and they came in and they checked me one last time and they were like, okay, I think it's time. So that's when a whole bunch of nurses began to come in. At first, it was about 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken. And they were like, okay, so you know how to push, right? And I was just like, I think I do. I'm not sure, because I didn't take any classes like labor and delivery classes to help you push, to help you know how to breathe in and out. So they were just like, just push like if you're pooping. I began to push. At first, it took me time to get used to having to push that way, because you have to push like hard, like for 10 seconds. So I began to push. It took me some time to get adjusted to the way I was pushing. And like I would push, and my boyfriend was right next to me at first, holding my hand. I had to let go of his hand to hold on to my legs. So he was in the bottom, like looking at everything down there. They were making me hold pushes, which was the worst, because I would feel like everything, like the pain of the contractions. And every time they would tell me to hold a contraction, like to not push, those were the strongest ones. So I felt like I was dying. But I was just thinking about my boy. I was just like, I don't care what happens to me, as long as he comes out good, that's all that matters. I feel like I had left my body and came back, because I feel like I closed my eyes and there were 5 doctors in the room. I opened my eyes and there were like 10 to 15 people in the room, and I was just like, what the heck? And they were like, yeah, you got this. My last few pushes, I felt the baby like pushing out. Saw the doctors like grabbing the blanket, and they were like, okay, one more. So I knew it was one more push, and with that one more push, like he would come out. When he came out, they laid him on top of my chest, and it just felt so surreal. Like, it's a feeling that it's not explainable. Like, I can't explain the way it felt when they laid the baby on me. It was just like this warm little thing just being laid on top of you, crying. And I was just like, ooh, like I was crying as well, because it's like he was finally here. After that, they had took a few minutes to stitch me up, because he did tear me. And I also got the I don't know how to say it. I'll write it down below. And I needed that in order for him to be able to come out. He came out, he measured 7 pounds and 3 ounces. I'm gonna insert some pictures so you guys could see. For those of you who are almost gonna deliver, all you have to do is just relax. When you're getting the contractions, just try to put your mind, like, just focus on the contractions. Don't like start panicking and going crazy, because that's when things end up going the wrong way. Thankfully, my doctors were not trying to do a C-section, because everyone, like my mom, she was like, if you had to give her a C-section, you could do it. Like, I was just like, I do not want a C-section. If our lives were at risk, of course, but if it's possible to deliver naturally, that would be great. You still have to heal if you do tear, because it's basically a C-section but down in your vagina. But if you do have a C-section, you like have to be very careful. You can't bend down. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with stitches down there as well, but it's not as bad as a C-section, which I think. But I was in labor for 22 hours, and then this little angel hi, this little angel came out, and he was the healthiest baby boy. He's already a month old, and he was born on June 2nd. If you guys have any questions, comment down below. I probably forgot to say some things, but if you guys do have any questions, you guys can DM me on Instagram or comment down below whatever you want to know. I'll answer it from my experience. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be back with more videos. Bye.